That's it. We are live. Today is Friday, the 6th of July, 2018. A couple of more people should be joining our panel. On the panel so far, we have our lovely Patricia and special guest, Martin, Flat Earth British.
That'll do. Okay. Hiya, Karen. Hiya, Patricia. How are you, ladies?
Hello, my darling.
Hot epic night in Great Britain. Come to bring you some history.
Or from Wales. From Wales, you
know. To do on a Friday. You don't want to be watching the World Cup now, do you?
Did you like football before, or are you not that bothered about football?
No, not that bothered about sport, full stop. I haven't been as an adult. I watched it as a kid, but I didn't like the sport aspect as such. I more liked the crowd aspect. I didn't like anything to do with sport outside of probably pool. I like the game of pool, a game of darts, and that's it really. So no, because I seen it as bread and circuses early on. You know what everyone. If everyone is going with the flow, say you go across a bridge in London at 9 o'clock in the morning, and all those people are rushing all in one direction, I'll be the person who's walking against all of them. I always go against the stream. Okay, so this is how it is. Okay, it's the same with the history as well, it would seem. But do you want me to just carry on and see what comes up now, Karen?
Yeah, you said you've got lots to talk about, and
I have got a fair bit I can talk about. Now, it's just trying to put some of this. What we're trying to do recently is trying to put it into some sort of chronology or some sort of sense, because it's definitely happened, a big event in the early 1800s. Okay, seemingly they have built all of Britain's infrastructure. That will be the docks, the railways, and the road system, right? And pretty much all of its civic buildings, all in this same era, okay, of the mid 1800s period. Same for other major cities. So nothing there much beforehand, but there's no photographic evidence anyway, only depictions. So you think to yourself, with this mud flow problem, that or it would seem plain wide that basically it would seem that no basements are on flat earth, and these basement levels were all at street level, and at some stage events that have happened and mud flows or falls of ash or whatever circumstances, a flood if you like, have come through, and they've kept it out of the narrative. Now why will become apparent soon. Now this has definitely happened, and the eradication of the evidence goes deeper than you might think. Even if you go try looking, I was on I had a guy on a hang up of mine last night from Scotland, excellent guy, rebel without a pause, and he's in Glasgow, and he tried to use the Freedom of Information's Act to get blueprints for a Victorian build. Okay, this is something that is not used very often, but it's there for us all to use. So if anyone lives in one of these buildings and they suspect it to be from this mud flood era, if they could get hold of an accurate, believable set of blueprints, that would be very, very helpful at this stage. Until then, we're going to carry on as we go, wondering what the hell is going on, because the evidence is certainly there. What they do is they get rid of the evidence. They knocked a lot of it down around the 1900 mark. I'll show you evidence of this now. The rest of it they made good. I mean the later mudflow buildings in the mid 1800s. Okay, so when you think that they are building all of the railway network, okay, them navvies, the Irish navvies, I'll show you them now, what they look like. Apparently they built all of the... Yeah.
Can I just ask you something? You were talking about London. I mean, it could be feasible that the Thames flooded, but this isn't just in London. This is everywhere. This is over across our plain.
The whole plain wide. Well, certainly in the 1811 events, the new Madrid or the new Missouri events, if you look into them, they were called the year of the comet, or the year of Napoleon's comet, or the year of the beggar, or the year without summer. There's many terms for this period. Okay, when Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was apparently written, this is his exact year of 1811. through to 1812, this event can be tracked all over the plain. St. Petersburg and Moscow, these giant edifices, cities are all there, the buildings are all there, but the streets are full of mud, the buildings are all half buried, and there's no people.
So our last reset could be only
very recent. And not only that, because we're only here, we only got, this is an aspect I'm going to actually talk about now as well, okay, is how long we've actually been here. Now, I'm going to look into basically how many people in my city alone, and then they're saying there's supposed to be X billion, 7.5 billion people on this plane, okay? Well, there's not. There's a damn sight less. We grow exponentially over a short period of time. Now, it would seem to me that these events have happened, not happened for at least 200 years, at least 200 years, but before then, they were regular, as in every 50 years. I mean, these were recurring events, okay, following what I would say is the survival times after what they would call Noah's flood. So if you can imagine,
natural thing happening, Martin.
Yeah. So natural things, and we've got few reasons to believe now, more than a few reasons to believe that the catalyst for some of these events are comets. Comet events, comets arcing out, and their tails actually touching the land in some cases, arcing out, causing huge earthquakes, volcanic events.
These are those electrical arcings we covered. Do you remember those big electrical arcings?
Yeah, for sure. So we always went on their heliocentrism and their rubbish for comets, okay? Now, when we looked into these quite deeply, comets, now I'll show you some information on them now. It's quite jaw-dropping when you go into it. Now, you can literally, which we've done, layer these years of these comets that are going over with such fear with redates. So in this one particular one, this 1744 comet, they have...
then, as we're in an enclosed system of some kind, where are they coming from then?
They could be shooting them, well, the way I've actually been thinking about it, I know it sounds crazy, but shooting them sort of laterally from over that way, out of pond, out of on the other side of the ice wall, who knows? But they're not coming from up there, they always come in from this angle, like that Russian one you see not many years ago, caught on all of them webcams. It was a similar sort of scenario that could have been thought of in antiquity as comets. Now, there's more going on with comets than you might imagine. Because they were so frequent, spires of cathedrals and churches were gathering power from passing comets. Okay, whatever happened, a catalyst or whatever happened in the atmosphere, an ionization, what have you, they had the technology or the alchemical knowledge to extract this substance out of the ether. The Germans called it Brill, there's many names for it, house it in these churches, emanate it through dormer windows or portal windows in a specific audible or non-audible frequency for the benefit or for the non-benefit of mankind. But this is in the mid-survivor times. Now, all of this antiquity, I believe, come from the previous reset. I believe that the custodians of the information, the controllers, I believe that they understand completely how this realm works, okay? And I believe that Hollywood and they definitely predicting us into knowing that they know how this place works. I had an interesting email off of Zal, one of my subs on Moxie. He lives in Australia, and he's got a few buddies in work, and they go to Native American religious meetings. So you get the oral tradition spoken at these meetings. Now, that is one of the only sources of history that we can rely on, is an oral tradition. That is a sacred text or word or story that is unchanged and passed down generation to generation, okay? So this is how it works for North American Indians. Now, it would seem that these people, they're like, what? Have you ever seen Black Panther? They're like them in Australia, the ancient Aboriginals. They're like Gogwandi or whatever it's called. They've taken psychic abilities to a higher level. Nobody has invaded this country, apparently, until the British, because they bring like nasty weapons like black powder and the rest with them that hadn't arrived, maybe until that time. But they had some sort of psychic grid, if that makes sense. Their shaman are very, very clever and connected dudes to the way this realm works in an alchemical or how they would say occultist or hidden knowledge. So what they would call is hidden knowledge. The Aboriginals were protecting themselves from invading army by setting up a psychic web or connect, imagine a psychic dome away from anything that could get you. Maybe you couldn't even see the place. Maybe it was even closed, because half of Australia doesn't appear on many, many Middle Ages maps. Okay. Also reports later, when the British arrived in 1730s, that there is a giant inland sea in Australia. Okay, there are many depictions of this. So these traditions give us a really different idea of how this place works. They're more in, when you listen to these stories, it's more akin to listening to an episode of The Twilight Zone. So I think that's exactly how this place is working. And I'm not saying like sort of parallel universes here, guys, okay, or pulling anything out of the quantum matrix or such. I'm talking about there's been small pockets of time where they keep in generations in less longevities of life. Okay, so we don't live as long, we're smaller, definitely dying younger. And we don't know what's outside of these pockets except for maybe one, pushing it 2 generations. Now, because I'm so like really into this subject, I go looking for my genealogy this week. Find my family history, my mother's side, okay, but not I got quite a bit on Estonian side, but only the war stuff. So I find my family records, my family tree, okay, I'll print out here. My family tree, there it is, I'm on there somewhere, okay, so I've been busy. Wow. So it's that with this guy, right, who is Stanley Richards, and he's from Bridgewater in Somerset, and he leaves there in the early 1800s or 1840s to come to Cardiff to build Cardiff docks. And he's the first member of my family, apparently, that's ever existed on my family tree. That's all I can find. And I think before that time, almost as if they're not even there, right? So, graveyards, what about them? Are the dead missing in them? Well,
Martin, when did the Doomsday thing start then?
Well, the Doomsday is from an era that didn't really exist, and it's made by what looks like children. And from what I've learned now, okay, I think it must be a definite misnomer, because some of the Middle Ages texts are sublime. You can't imagine how these are created. Yeah, the Doomsday Book is all it is a toll of who's got what farm and how many hectares he's got and how many cattle and blah 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 for each. But I think it's set on if it is any truth, it is a dating accuracy, and it's post-survivor times, and it's taking a census what's left on the plain. They'd used stories like Black Deaths, the Black Death of the 14th century, apparently wiped out third of European population. So that's one of their excuses. So I think a big part of this whole thing, outside of hiding 3 energy, keeping us into small pockets of time, telling us lies about spinning balls, is population control. I think that they need a lot of slaves, but they don't need that many. Okay, but this place that we find ourselves on, nobody feels comfortable with. Isn't that unusual? And we all feel there's something really off. Isn't that unusual? And we're all have struggling short lives where we pop out. Not one of us wants it. Now what's going on with that? So there's a big sort of paradox going on with just existing. Okay, so
hey, Martin, very quickly, can I just stop you? The chat room are starting to say oi 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 oi.
Are they? Oh, yo, to you all too. I forgot I was people even there then. I thought it was just me and you talking.
Yeah, I'll do a shout out for Martin.
Oh,
Sorry,
thanks.
Martin.
Peace and love to you people. I hope you're all having a lovely Friday. Nice. It is Friday. Yeah, it is
It is
Friday.
Friday. Well, we think it's Friday.
So, evidence for mud flood, right? Now, I'll start with a place. Beautiful depictions, nevertheless. I won't share a pic of a place that we all know is New York City. So I think I'll start with evidence of there, because apart from that, it's quite beautiful to look at as well, isn't it? Just give us a second.
Yeah, I told you just before we went live that I was also looking at these pictures and I just couldn't believe how many big buildings there were, like 1910 and that. I mean, these things weren't just 2 stories high, they were like 10, 12 stories high.
Yeah, no, you're joking, ain't you? You gotta be joking. I was doing the math on it earlier. It's crazy. These things are around in the Victorian era, okay? So I'll show you now. It's best if I just show you.
It's not like we get a sudden bit of history about showing us all that. It's just like, if they were that poor and all these things were going on, then
okay. So that's supposed to be a major city street in New York, all right, at the turn of the century. Now, just looking at it, you think yourself, all right, it looks like the modern day, don't you? This is coming back to Broadway. But something becomes apparent. Apart from this is supposed to be circa 1900, so this is the Victorian era. So you've got a lot of these little Greco-Romano temples everywhere. So they're old. And I mean, they're proper old, okay? And then you've got a particular theme of architecture, white marbled masonry on the lower levels, okay? And then it goes red brick as you go further up. Now, you're going to see this as a replicating theme. Now, they will explain in their narrative that these buildings are added so later. So they start them in 1880 and they do a 1900s refurbishment. So this is perfect evidence here. So major New York thoroughfare, Fifth Avenue. And as you can see, this whole block here was made in a particular type of stone. I'd love to know how they got it there on horse and carriage. A picture just fell off my wall. Back in the day, when apparently, as you can see there, it's only sand, but apparently before this time, it was just mud and very poor, no infrastructure. So how were they getting all this masonry here in the first place, I wonder? Anyway, so this is all below street level. You've got exactly the same in the UK, all over Europe, Australia, Sydney, in other places are showing exactly the same, okay? So they're all below street level. And these buildings themselves, which are what we now believe to be atmospheric gathering devices and more. And they all got exactly the same exhibiting things. They got what they call belfries with slits in, but these are actually hollow chambers, and they go into like a fluting chamber. I've got an inside picture, and I've worked sort of in my mind how these things work, but comets help a lot. But look at this thing, okay? So this is apparently, you know, a Victorian era, but this masonry, it doesn't fit. It's the same sort of Greco-Romano architecture. It is perfect Greco-Romano architecture. So what's going on exactly? All right, the slums, nice picture though, nevertheless. But that's a poor quality picture. That's a poorer quality picture. But this as well. So it looks like, for looking at it from there, it looks like the Apolline Way in Rome, doesn't it? But it's not. It's New York. This could be Saint Mark's in Paris, exactly the same design of tower. And there's these domes sticking up into the air, the balustrade, the whole thing does something. Ooh, what's that on the flag there? It's a red dragon. And a copy of Rome and a copy of what is supposed to be, I suppose, a Constantine arch, but it's in New York City. So is some of this stuff still there? Well, this is, but a lot of this stuff is mostly gone. Now, I'm going to show you some, just flick through. Now, these, I took a photograph of one in Birmingham. There's one I got sent last night to me in Edinburgh, identical to this building. So they blocked up, concreted up all of these, what they call dormer windows or portal windows. So why have they got them if they're blocked up? because the mechanism, because this building is so old, is now decommissioned. And whatever happened could be maybe partly attributed to this system. We don't know yet. But here, look, you've got aerials on here as well. So it's all part of this system, all decommissioned and disappeared by 1900. Gone, eradicated. The whole world starts anew at 1800. For some strange reason, these buildings here, you can all see, are very much below ground level, very much. So they're all mud flooding in the suburbs as well. As you can see here, exactly the same colonial style building, energy gathering device, sunk into the mud. So I wouldn't even like to say how much of this building is missing. I would say this much and more again, because I have some pictures where you get into the sub basement, which is a floor below the floor, and then there's still columns.
How many floors is that then?
Well, that would probably, well, that's only a 2-story building at the moment, but I'm just saying when that was in full flow, it was probably twice as high. It was probably more. The depth of the mud was something like 25 foot in some places, 300 in others. It varied in depth. I think that was down to topography, though, if I'm honest. These as well, clock towers, spires, all part of it, and domes. Now, if lightning hits this, okay, it's going to collect in wires that are in here. Now, this would be gold or copper. Now, it's not electrical conductor to ground it, because I've worked on electrical conductors. I fitted them. You only need one strip, so it's not doing that. And it's in a bell dome shape with the portals as well. So this will be gold or gold leaf, or it will have some electrical conductive properties to it. So they're collecting it in the dome, and then I think it's released later. Okay, they collect it and they release it later. There's some ideas that it might be released at will from places called star forts for weapons, energy weapons, or even microwave weapons of the day.
What did you say? Star forts? Star
forts, yes. STAR, star forts. Now,
and they're an enigma. What's your take on those? Because those all are symbols, aren't they? You know, they're like
all cymatic patterns, yes. So my take on them is there's two ways of thinking about it. The people that are inside them are protecting themselves, not from armies, but from some kind of weapon, like an energy weapon. If you remember, think of them as a stealth bomber of the day, where energy hits it and just dissipates and just flips off it. Could be something like that, or the opposite. They're giving out these huge blasts of, who knows, a ripple effect, who knows, deaggregation. You could do anything. The technologies and the possibilities are monumental. Now, this is good evidence for mud flood cover-up. Now, they've used the First World War. They've used the Crimean War. They've used the Second World War to get rid of a lot of this architecture to give the game away. Now, these were all knocked down at the turn of the century. What's unusual about it all, guys, right? This is
what a shame.
What a shame. It's more than that. They're just hiding the evidence, you see. But you got to try and use your mind to... We'll do the date first of all. Okay, so it's 1900. And it's a 30-story building. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so I've been 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's a 30-story building in Victorian era. So this is as well. Okay, so I've looked at them quite close down below. They look like they're deeper into the ground, but that's besides the point with these beauties. So the three of them at the same time get demolished, okay, to make way for apparently Fleet Street's newspaper. Okay, so it's City Hall Park and Newspaper Row in New York. Just take it back, I'll show you. It's just insanity. But what they're doing, when you can see this building on the corner just by here, sort of gives the game away a bit better. You can see by here that the windows, get closer in, much better. Oh, beautiful. You can see that these stairs and this balustrade, the whole thing here would have been, I think, added later. And you can see this is not a sub-basement. There's no reason to have this here. They've never had cars. So, as far as we know, they never had underground car parks. So there's no reason for these sub-basements. So all of these in this area, which have got this exact same kind of architecture, looks like it could be from ancient Jerusalem, or it's beautiful architecture, and it's all exactly the same. And this type of architecture is not easy to come across nowadays in New York. Baroque or Gothic architecture, this style has been blitzed. You only got like the Dakota and a few other chestnuts that have been
You know
kept
why that
around.
is, though, don't you? Because they've got to keep it that we found them only a few hundred years ago.
Well,
So,
yeah, exactly, yeah. But like, so this place has been in the mud, and this is 1900. So when was this building erected? Try and give it a date. It got the same technology. Look, the portals. This one's been blocked up as well, so it was doing the same tech. So I'm even thinking these larger buildings are even part of this, because of the way that the stone and the way they I watched the transition, and they're all built exactly the same way, with the arches, domes, the same, flat earthy sort of architectural keys. They're all doing the same. So I think, and the three of these get knocked down exactly at the same time. I'm not sure about this building. It's it's a part of a railway station there. Is eradication of evidence for mud flood. There's a few others on here. If it's not for covering up mud flood, it's covering up the fact that they were using more than just free energy back in the day, which they were, guys, which they were. So these are the key, the Singer building towers. Now these towers are all over antiquity. They're not just in New York, but look at the size of these things, guys. What about this in the background? It's a Tesla tower. These things are not really supposed to be up and running at 1908. Well, Tesla tower maybe.
how did they manage to build all that?
It's a mud flooder. So when? So look, this building, this big domed window here. So I always wonder, why are they making them so huge, these windows anyway, on all of these buildings? Were people, when they were built, bigger? They all use the same architectural quality, which what I mean by that is it all does something. Balustrades, domes, there are names for every single part of them, and they all do something together, right? And the lower level, now this window and this window and this window could be like the tops of these windows. This much is certainly buried, okay? So and they're all showing it, but these buildings are all obviously destroyed. Some of them are really sinister. They built this one, I'll show you in a moment, and it's the first fireproof building in the world. Yeah, they knock it down. It's like, as soon as it's built, and these buildings are, like, in their narrative, built between 1882 and 84. Why are they bothering to even build them if they're just going to keep them up for such short time when they're so beautiful?
Yeah, but isn't it that, not being horrible to any Americans listening in, but they seem to like us more because of that. One thing that they haven't got is this line of history, supposedly, like we've got.
No, they
it's
have.
rubbish. They do.
No, it's just a cover-up. No, they have. This cover-up it's as deep as flat Earth. Even this grey building we're looking at, well, take a look at the rails there. It's going down and down below street level. And it's got a Greco-Romano arch. Yeah, it's in a grey, granite, marble, modern, futuristic-looking way. But I'm telling you now, that's old. It's a mud flood building. So could you see these round windows, the one I'm pointing at here? Watched a film last night. Again, this is Avengers with my son, and Marvel are certainly pushing some sort of agenda. Doctor Strange, who's working on, he's a mystic or a magician who works on alchemical formula. They keep closing up on his window, which is one of these portals in New York, in his mansion, with a cymatic pattern, a specific frequency in the window. Like, is anyone noticing this? So here's this first fireproofed building in history. Okay, check it out. But yeah, again, it's below street level down the bottom. So they're saying this is a new build, the first fireproofed building in history, and they knock it down, demolished by 1950.
What kind of foundations would this building have to have? Because they're still quite tall, aren't they?
God knows. I think this is the key. I think they go really, really deep. I think these are a lot deeper. I think what we see is just the pinnacle. I imagine when I look at the Kremlin is a good example. The Kremlin, you see just that one bit sticking up out of the ground, but I imagine that just being the tip of a great, huge edifice. Do you ever see the film, Karen, From Dusk Till Dawn, Quentin Tarantino?
Yeah, I've seen that. Can I just say
Right.
that Mr. Thrive and Survive has joined us? Hello, Rich.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Martin. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good to hear your voice, Rich. Blessings.
Yeah, good to be here. I might be a little out of it. I had physical therapy and kind of overdid it.
Well, yeah, that's strange physio. It will leave you out of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, continue. Sorry if I interrupted or was interrupting.
Just go back a little bit and just explain about what you saw in that building, because he hasn't heard all this about the fact that these buildings are some of it's under the ground. You were just showing a picture.
Well, it's not only this. Every single British city that I'm looking into. This is New York for an example. I'm using, Rich, because it's beautiful to look at and they're beautiful postcards. But even what they're calling newer builds, this is circa 1900, so it's still the Victorian era. So this great granite marble building, but on this rail, you can see that it goes below ground level, and it's got a Greco-Romano door arch. Now, I've showed quite a few examples of this on this just particular link itself. This first fireproof building in history, Victorian, apparently, same granite, white granite marble, with what would appear to be below street level. Again, Greco-Romano architecture. So is this all? This has all been knocked down, by the way, everything you see now. So to me, I think this is a clear cover-up of a higher level of civilization and antiquity than they lead us to think. Like, I'm sort of thinking, if you walk down a New York City street in, say, 1790 or 70 or earlier, 1750s, say, that you would expect to see a skyscraper like this. But because we got no photographic evidence, okay, the evidence is pretty sketchy. But these buildings, they're there a lot longer than what they're proposing. I can't even imagine how they got the stone there in the first place. And why are they always so just ginormous arches? Every single one of them will have a dormer window portal, and they all exhibit exactly the same style of architecture. You get a mid-column of what we call portal windows or dormer windows, and they're always at a mid-level. Is it for cooling? No, these things are for architectural quality. They are collecting. They are energy gathering.
Explain, they're not there anymore, are they? They've been knocked down.
This one was the Tribune, and it was one of 3 buildings. But the photograph that I showed, then 3 buildings are missing in this depiction. But this is that same 30-story Tribune. The 3 of them were in a row, giant 30-story skyscrapers, 1900, exhibiting mud flood, demolished a couple of years after their apparent erection. Makes 0 sense. They did exactly the same to the Waldorf Astoria. I'll show you in a minute. It's one of the best looking hotels in the world, right? And they knock it down because they want its footprint to build the Empire State Building. Yeah, but when you see it, you think to yourself, no, something's just not fitting. So does that look like New York? Because it doesn't. It looks like San Marco's Tower in Venice, and it's got exactly the same, I can guarantee you, style of colonnades, architecture. These, what you would think of as balustrades or columns or colonnades, and you see them here. In a sense, you could think of them as a type of battery or portable battery or part of a giant battery cell. Because these entire buildings, I believe, apart from maybe having some sort of, public role, being power pump station or power stations on the corners, and you get them right the way through antiquity. So I'm proposing that it's not Tesla that invented free energy. I think Tesla hogged it because he's a Serbian, because it is open knowledge, the electricity scam game in that part of the world. And in Britain, I got told by a Serbian, knocked me to the floor. She said, oh yeah, my great grandmother told me that her great grandmother told her, oh, the old electricity scam. I thought, her great grandmother, how far back are we going? So yeah, I think we had it, and everything disappears. 1855 to 1900, it's gone. from the photographic records and the evidence, and the airbrush stuff out as well. But you get a lot left in, like an overbalance of balustrades, aerials in a lot of shots. But I found some where they've been added, so they play with these now as well with this discovery. So there's a Waldorf Astoria. She's old. She's a mud flood building. She's almost identical to the Dakota Hotel as well in architectural style, because I've looked at them both. And they demolish her because she's a mud flood building, and they put the Empire State Building on her footprint. Makes no sense to me at all. And what about this beauty, the Astor Hotel? Okay, so this thing here, right? I'd say it's not really showing any here, but they say, look, they had original portions of the hotel, 1904, completed the second section in 1910. Now, to me, there's no real need to add that information to that photograph or that context to that postcard. So I'm thinking to myself, so they're sort of explaining, if you've got any niggling questions in your head of how this thing could be at this era. Okay, how was it built? When was it built? How'd they get the bloody materials there in the first place? This place is supposed to have no infrastructure, covered in mud. You haven't started your underground system yet till, you know, the 1840s. So what exactly is going on? And they knock it all down. Everything you see here, the evidence to a highly technological near past. You can see the same style not only in New York, guys. This is I've seen this all over antiquity in these atlases from 1733 that I've been studying, and this same style of architecture, Baroque or Greco-Romano. I think these buildings were there already. They attribute them to colonial builders. So who built these? The British? Well, study that, because whenever you watch like a movie or what have you from the American Revolutionary War, or you know, they got one of those really early American episodes, they was taken into this like civic building that is made of granite, and it's already there, and this stuff's already there at this very early time in America, even in their movies. So I think this stuff was built by a civilization that was inundated with mud. I think lost vast amounts of people. I think there was famine plain wide, which got evidence for anyway. And the keys are there. Oh, look at this beauty, the Hippodrome, with what looked like energy gathering towers devices. Very much like what you see in Novigrad expositions in Russia. They got exactly the same thing, and that was a Tesla tower before Tesla was supposed to have done his experiments. If you look into Novigrad expositions in Russia, they're very, very, very intriguing. Now, I'm just going to flip through now some more information, because I know although they are very beautiful, they'll all show the same sort of evidence. Now, here's a question for you. My city of Cardiff, okay, was apparently biggest coal port in the world at the 1900 mark. So I got a question. Now, population. Okay, so in 1801, in my city, a couple of years later, my ancestor turns up, right, apparently. So in 1801, there's only 6,000 people in my city. 50 years later, there's 26,000 people. Okay, and then coming up to it being the biggest coal port in the world in 1901, there's 172,000 people. Now, where are all the people to this date? 1801. Where are populations? So what is their excuse in the official narratives is they blame advancements in cultural, basically farming techniques of the 14th century they blame, and Jethro Tull. That's the official narratives for population growth, guys, right? But it doesn't fit with what we're studying. So something seriously has happened. There's no people, and then there's from 172,000 in 1900 to last census of 2008, which was 324,000, and now there's 400,000 plus in the city. So that's a jump of, well, it's jumped fourfold. But where are all the people? So they're not in the graveyards either, because they only go back, even in my oldest graveyard in my city, and they're only going back earliest late 1700s. So I can't find anything outside of religious institutions with any antiquity. So
Martin, I
Right.
wasn't sure if Rich wanted to say something because he unmuted and then he muted him.
yeah, go on. Sorry.
Did you want to say?
I just wanted to say I left a link in the back chat. It's a video that talks about ceramic discs on old buildings and things like that, where they've used harmonics to turn that into electricity. And the other thing I wanted to comment on is these old buildings before, if I remember right, around 1855 to 1860, somewhere in there, is when the first time supposedly they had elevators in buildings. And yet you've showed some buildings older than that were like 15, 17 stories. I can't imagine people going up and down that every day. And how would they get their furniture up there and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, I never thought of that either. Well, getting the stone up there as well. You know, the whole
Yes,
operation.
exactly. How did they do that? And all these buildings, I don't see closest, but they all look like, and church steeples too. They all look they have these ceramic discs. If you
that's part of it. 100% is the ceramics. Yeah.
Yes. And if you pull up a modern what they call a relay station, which I think is actually a power generating station, you'll see as you have the towers, and then in between you have the wires, but in between the wires you have these ceramic discs going all down it. And when they put a transformer up in front of your house, if there's no, I know this because I've been looking in the property and starting, from scratch with empty land. They have to put a pole up and they run the wire. You would think they could just drop a wire from it, but no, they have to put a transformer on it, and it's always ceramics.
I know. I've seen it anyway because these giant pagodas you see in Japan. Well, I've discovered as in an atlas as early as 1733, they show you actually on there these discs are made, and it says porcelain. I thought, please don't tell me that that's going to translate into porcelain. And as I clicked translate, and I was, holy hell, these things are conducting electricity. These are like a lot of electricity. So this has been around right the way through. Now, this is something I picked on this week, which was bugging me, was the narrative of navies built in basically America's railway systems and canal systems, and Britain's too. So have you seen what they look like? The guys that built the British Empire, the guys that invented and brought in the modern world. Well, let's take a look at them. There they are.
Kids.
Yeah. So that is your standard Irish navy. So where are all the people? These colonial buildings, these operations, like on this particular one, the Manchester Shipping Canal, there should be tens of thousands of people, but there's no people, and they're attributing all of these canals, all of the railways of Britain and the world, really, in the Western world, to Irish navvies, and there they are. So they're, first of all, they're missing populations and they're small undernourished boys. So what's going on? They live in shacks, just small children in squalor. Then they don't live like anything. So this is apparently the people who give us the modern world. Does this look like the type of people, the way they live in, that built those granite structures we were just witnessing, guys? Because it's not. It's not. There is something definitely going on. What these guys did is, I believe, they dug us out. They dug us out of the mud. I think after the events of 1811, the New Missouri events, which left a thick layer of silt plain white or mud, here they are, and I believe they dug us out. I mean, these excavations, when you see them on the Panama Canal and the rest, okay, and on the Manchester Shipping Canal, I think these excavations are excavations. I really do. And the reasons, the London Underground, first in the world and deepest. So they don't think of doing it before then, guys. So then New York takes the lead after that, and then Moscow, and then every other city on earth, but not before that point. So what was that? Innovation again, is it? Because you can't just arrive an entire population of the plane at the 1800 mark, guys. There'll not be any people here, hardly any people around, right? Build an entire infrastructure and the world you see around you today. Something else is definitely going on, okay? Yeah, the populations have exploded, but I think we were definitely in smaller pockets of time. These look like not really like men going to work. I'm not saying they're looking like slaves either. I'm looking like there's a job that needs doing. This doesn't look like cutting in a side embankment, but you think of this as well. When you go through railway lines, okay, you look up a bank and sometimes they can go for 100 foot either side. And we've all been through them on trains and you think, geez, how did they dig all this stuff out? And then you go through a giant tunnel and you think, wow, all this too, and more and more. So what do they do with all the excavated mud? Did they just use it to build up the railway lines on? Did they spread it all around the fields of Britain? What happened to all the excavated mud of apparent original builds for all the railways, all of the docks, all of the infrastructure of Great Britain and its empire? Well, it's not there. So what they are doing is they are bringing it back to life. And I think that was Britain's power as well with the empire, with his ability to do this, more than commerce and official narratives. I really, really do. So move on. So the blame for a lot of these in my research would be comets. They were far more frequent in the past. Are they man-made? Well, there is some evidence that are pointing in this way. I think they come at different heights. They come in laterally, or they come in sort of not down, if you like. They are sort of skimming our plane, if you like. So Halley's Comet is supposed to come around every 76 years or so, and it's a beauty. It's one of their main bullshit reasons for their heliocentrism. Unfortunately, our lifespans are not long enough that we could actually witness this for ourselves, or the likelihood of you actually witnessing this comet as a baby and then remembering it as a demented old lady are highly unlikely. So there's nobody actually in living history outside of them again who can verify that this goes around every so often. So it's different comets. If it's
yeah, you got that right. I've been looking for comets since I was a kid, and I couldn't wait for Halley's Comet to come. Supposedly people saw it through optics, and then we were supposed to have Comet Ison, which was supposed to be the comet of the century.
Sure.
And the only way anybody ever saw that, I'm sure people will say they looked through binoculars or whatever and saw it, but visually, you know, like you're showing here, you got all these comments on pictures and postage stamps and things like that. The only way you saw Ison at all was on the phony NASA supposedly looking at the sun satellite. It was a CGI graph of it going around and then exploding out, and oh, that's why we didn't see it.
Right. Well, they just changed their official narrative, these sun worshippers. They use like Thunderbolts projects to do that, I think, where they came out this week or the week before saying they have actual new evidence now to say that comets don't actually eject these million-long-mile tails when they go past the sun, because this is happening as far out as Uranus now. So this is their new narrative. So this thing that they used to say, it come too close to the sun and then a million-mile long tail while it was going back out into the depths of space, is no longer true, because they changed the narrative on that, like in the last week or two, which is really strange.
Are they still saying it's ice and rock?
They're not saying they're dirty ice balls and snow no more. No.
Now, about time people are waking up to that BS.
Yeah. Do you remember, Rich, these things that were falling down all over the plane? They were all over the internet a year or so ago, where they look like big giant coconuts, is the only way I can explain them. They look a bit metallic, and they're giant balls, hairy balls. Have you ever seen these dropping from the sky at all?
I haven't seen it, just on.
No, it was all over the internet a little while ago. Well, I kind of thinking that these might be something that they're trying. They look exactly like them, but this is their evidence for Halley's Comet on the Bayeux Tapestry, okay, which is supposed to be a depiction of the Norman conquest of England in 1066, right? So this is their timestamp for their heliocentrism, is this evidence of this really silly little cartoon of what looks like something built by a man, you know, with straight bits and perpendicular bits and wires and everything. No. You can see what's going on.
It looks like a primitive claw machine.
Yeah. But I just know that they don't work, and art didn't look this way. Even if this period existed, it didn't look this rubbish. Okay, they could come up with exquisite works. They really didn't need to do this. So that's the excuse. Now, it can bring plagues. Can it alter people's personalities as such? Well, there's some ideas that it might be some DNA alteration with them. But here you go. You see a comet flying over, and it will be very, very close to a church steeple. You'll see this a lot. Now, let me just show you something very intriguing here, Rich. You're going to like, you probably haven't. Now,
maybe it was an early weather balloon because people were saying the Earth was a ball.
well, no, that's not as a joke as you might think now in a second. I'll just show you. Now, this is a very old microfilm that have come in a few weeks back, which I've been mesmerized with. So it gives you the first comet in this one is 1744, all right? Now, a funny thing happened in that year is the calendar change year of Gregorian to Julian to Gregorian, that very year. So you look into other comments and you think to yourself, nah, this is some kind of wind up going on. I can't corroborate, like, say, most of these events with events that I can prove have happened on the ground, like in history, can I? But you know what? A lot of them you actually can. But this is a recurring theme. It's chemtrailing, Rich. I'm not sure what to think about this, but they show every comet looks different, and you've got this big blanket of cloud underneath them. Okay, so take a look at this. How it changes is actually fascinating. But what I do believe is, and I've got evidence to show it, they may be thinking in alchemical terms in this period as electric being God, because it's so white, powerful, and if it hits you, it's going to knock you to the floor. Now, when you look up symbols for angels, okay, they give you a little like lines, squiggly lines. I don't want to bring them up now because there's something attached. There's something spooky going on with it all. But what they show you, circuitry, specific kind of circuitry, piezoelectric circuitry for angels' names. Now, and these people are akin in electricity or something that's in the ether to what this book is referring to as God. Okay, so then it starts to get weird. Okay, Rich, because you got what would appear to be maybe mud flood events, but it does show volcanicity in a moment, and you get like these things turning up. So does that look like piping, man-made, metallic, or rockety, maybe? A missile, something falling? A rod from God? Who knows? But it doesn't look like a natural phenomena.
And it looks like fireworks, and they're all clapping to it.
Exactly. But what about two comets? Well, that was reported in 1811. They came in from the southwest, but there was a couple of them apparently. So same year, two suns ready to shine just for you. What this bit is, I don't know, but I think it's something to do with the energy ripples. I'm not sure how this thing works, but it seems, and the evidence, that when they fly over too close to our plane, an ionization happens. I don't know if it's the salinity of the sea causing like an electrolyte or something acts this place out and blows volcanoes when these go over. Now,
yeah, I think that's showing those electrical arkings again that I was saying about, that, you know, obviously across this thing you even find them on Google Maps.
You get a lot. You get that. You get a rippling out effect. You get fiery blood or red rain as well. You get a few specific circumstances with these comets that go over, and a specific mental effect to the population, by the way. Okay, that's why they're always thought of. People always think of them as a bad omen, don't they? But there they go again. Look, they're always in a blanket of cloud, like they're chemtrailing of today, guys. You know what's going on? And this looks nothing like anything of nature. It looks man-made. What about the obelisk? So the spires actually touch or lick these flames coming out of this giant obelisk. Isn't it Stanley Kubrick's megalith of space oddity. Well, it is, isn't it? So it's not a comet, but it's being depicted as a comet. So things are going over at this stage, okay, and they're looking like this. So comets apparently are really frequent up until about the last one that I can track is that Napoleon's comet. But this is intriguing. 3 suns, which are trying to decode it, and dropping the laurel leaf of control of the Caesars, almost as if they're giving a gift to this fella. You know, have a bit of power. And these are like clapping, like jolly good show. Give us some more tech. Bring it back later. Oh, doesn't scream some fiery object coming out of space, does it, guys? It seems like there's something definitely else going on. And plus, they all sort of are very low. And in all these cases, they sort of touch the spires where we now from the
It
other
looks like
end.
a leprechaun getting a pot of gold.
Yeah, man. Exactly. I tell you what else we found. One depiction I found in a similar sort of atlas. You see it actually collecting this power out of a passing comet. And then in the translation, it sort of referred to it as it could be collected this energy and unleashed a fury, a frenzy. So they're sort of painting that they could save up energy using spires out of comets and use them as some sort of weapon and dissipate it.
On our last hangout together, Martin, I was sort of saying that I was really shocked that in the 1800s, when I found these photographs, okay, they're beginning to disappear on the side of the roads now, the poles with the wires on, the telephone, the electric. I couldn't believe that, you know, like if you just looked at the wires and the posts, you could have said it was here right now because there are places still with the wires and the poles.
Well, more than that, you've just
said to me, I said, oh my goodness, there was something else going on in the 1800s. And you said, no, it's been going on for a lot longer than that.
Well, hang on. Them pictures we were just looking at, they were there 1900. So they were supposed to be there in the 1840s, some of them. Okay, right. So we can presume that they were there earlier, or even if they were there at that time. These are from the 1700s, guys. Look at the buildings. They're not like the busy New York streets of what is or will be 50 years on.
You know what strikes me, Martin? When you showed the volcano picture, the last volcano picture,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Leonardo da Vinci, but they did a pretty good depiction of that.
I've got a few. I've got another one I could pull up now, Rich, which will show you. It's a book of volcanoes in Tidey, all around the Atlantic, Cape Verde, Azores, and it will show you the basalt column formations, and they are so basically detailed. It is mesmerizing. I got a lot of this stuff, of this kind of information, trying to work out what's exactly been going on. So comets, we can attribute to events, okay? Maybe depopulations, maybe for the reason why the whole world seems to have arrived at around the, I don't know, 1900 mark. Bam, and we're all here, everything's working, and we got cities, infrastructures, and everything's there. But it's not, is it? Because nothing's fitting. That doesn't look like a comet, does it, guys? Looks like a sword or something. So a lot of these they've attributed to, there was comets where, well, the Magi followed a wandering star to the birthplace of Jesus. So comet, probably. And what about, so it's in the literature there. What about other comets have been attributed to historical events? Yeah, Constantine and the advent of Christianity. And there's been other significant historical events that them, in their crazy official narratives, will attribute comets to. Now, why is it we're looking at New York in 1900 and it looks like something you recognize out of the modern day, but you step back 100 years and everything goes into the realm of alchemical, weird mystery. You can't make head or tail out of anything of antiquity. Everybody's head's in a really crazy place. There's beasts existing that don't really exist. There's a dragon there, as you can see, with a fiery tail, but that could be just allegory for a comet. But you get giants, dwarfs, you get unicorns. I've got a book I found like literally this morning of, let's see if I can just bring it up. It was a book of, it's by here, of animals. And it's supposed to be a reality. And from the 1700s, so it's like this era's in fantasy land for some reason, guys. Check this out, right? So I thought, Oh, a book of animals of the region. Okay, this should be interesting for this period. But unfortunately, oh, this is the back of the book. I hope not. No. 1733. So they're a lead atlas again. Okay, so they're showing animals that don't exist in our reality in the 1700s, and this is not mythos. They're saying in this book, these are a reality. And I got books where, oh, Starfort, actually, this one is. I'm very sorry, but if you are wondering, there's a Starfort, guys. But I've got one from 17, an animal book was showing unicorns, dragons, and crypt.
Hey Martin, one moment. Rich, have you heard of Starfort?
Well, this will be intriguing, eh?
Yeah.
So this place here, right, Starforts, if you don't know about them, they're out of place and they're out of time. This is apparently built in some time, they say, in 1600s, but you get down on them and they spoil sacred geometry, okay? So specific frequencies and fractal geometry as well. So first thing is apparent is they're out of time with the rest of what's going on, because inside of these reinforced concrete, deep parapets, and very, very clever Starforts. Okay, get the odd 1-2 cannon position there. So something else is going on. But it's a medieval town inside, except for the huge energy gathering power centers on each corner, of course, which seem to be a lot deeper. That looks like a lot of that is missing to me. But you're going to get them everywhere. So this area particularly is Mons, right? Now, this place had a huge, elaborate Starfort. Now, you'll find this in every European city you can think of. They will have one of these, or had. So, where are they gone? Well, Mons was the epicenter for one of the biggest battles of the First World War. This entire city, if you take a look at this in, say, 1915, is flattened, okay, including its very famous cathedrals and churches and its energy devices, and its smashed up Starfort system is taken out of this era, with many, many other Starfort systems, all in the First World War. But there they are in the 1700s, apparently working on water as well. So they get water comes in around the outside. So they look like a circuit board for a start off. So water seems to come coursing in, and it's driving some sort of gearing mechanism here. I've yet to work out if that's just driving the water or something else is going on. But anyway, that's besides the point. This is supposed to be built, guys, in what they call the later Middle Ages. So do we think they were built then? Well, no, because if you look into the real history, you find the biggest empire that ever existed in our time around is not actually the British Empire. It's the Empire of Tartaria, or Tartary, which is the entire of Asia from China to Muscovy. And they have Starforts, and they're up and running quite early on in antiquity. So we can't really say when these things have been laid, guys. So I think they are from a previous set. I think that they got these things back up and running. It's just a nice pick. Actually, that's the theme pack of the 1700s, just if you're wondering. And I think that they dug a lot of this stuff out of the mud, got it back up and running, and we are post-flood society. This is your theme pack of the day. This is Rich, apparently. 1700s.
Did you notice the pyramid in the background on the left side?
Oh yeah. You get a lot of these. They're not supposed to be there actually, but there's 2 obelisks there as well. I could show you a series of books now, and if you thought, or anyone out there thought, that it's only Egypt or the places they give us, like Bosnia or China, that are famous for pyramids, and Mexico or Mesoamerica and the rest, they're everywhere. They're in every city in antiquity, including Britain. All at this era, all they are showing is unbelievable Starforts, unbelievable architecture. Something happens in this period, everything in this 1733 period. These particular atlases you're looking at, for some reason, ended up sat on for 100 years in the Flemish history rewriter's office, untouched, untampered with. So what I think has happened, I think this is a key to our real history. I think this is something that slipped through. I think they buggered up is what I think they've done by letting this slip through for something like my greasy little eyes to get its eyes on, because this is big busts on every single one of these things we pull apart, for the use of atmospheric electricity, for something to do with harmonics and cymatic patterns they were surely using. Look at this for a starfall bombardment. So they're using basic ballistics, but what is that, an incendiary? That looks exactly like a depiction of that comet thing we were just looking at. So apparently, in 1733, the world looks like this, and they're taking out citadels using some crazy big balls with fire on, which are not fireballs, cannonballs, by the way. So the world is nothing like we thought it was, is it, guys? Nothing.
Have you
Look
ever
at
looked
these
at Fort
things.
McHenry? I don't know if it fits the bill or
Oh,
not.
there's so many in America, all down the East Coast are the best ones. But there's a strange anomaly I found, especially with the Fort Williams in America, because there's one in Scotland as well, and there's two in, I think one's in Connecticut, I think the other's in Maine. But there's a series of star forts down the East Coast of America. And what you find is something really unusual if you get down on Google Earth, right? There's petroglyphs coming off them. So what I mean is, at the end of each tip of these triangles, there are lines, right? Just off of each one into the horizon, you know, literally right the way as far as you can see, like hundreds of miles, guys. And they crisscross the other star forts as well. So they're like associated to petroglyphs, and it's not just in I've seen them in Ireland too. As well, exactly the same petroglyphs. So I think that all these star fort systems were like a greater, you know, like they got like these modern shields of this day. I think it was Antiquity's shield, all connected up to one main hub, and all these things did something pretty biblical, I can tell you. And it was based on vibrational sound qualities, guys, or possibly microwaves, but definitely cymatic wave patterns, or 432, or however you want to put it. Maybe audible, maybe non-audible. It's difficult to say at this stage, but every one of these star forts I'm showing you in this book here, I don't think it's any accident that every single one of them took a serious bombardment in First World War, including Luxembourg, First and Second World War. No accident at all. So what else we got to show you? What else we got? I got so much, Rich. I could go on forever, really.
Martin, if they've got pyramids with them, does that mean they're all the same age?
It says that they've basically, what my interpretation is this, okay, is they are touching up or making good the existing antiquity from the previous civilization, not fully understanding how it works yet, but finding out as they go. So a lot of these are made good. One example I think of is, as mad as it sounds, Washington Monument. Check the early photographs of that thing. When they're laying the bottom blocks, the first blocks to go down, they're laying them on these giant megalithic blocks that look like they're in Baalbek, but there's only one or two of them photographs existing. So I think they were there already. I think America had some early, what they were akin to a colonial civilization, advanced as well. So what you're looking at here, guys, is another phenomenon associated with events, is the city fires. So what we find is all of Europe, America, in exactly the same period, all their cities are literally erased to the ground. So that includes New York, Philadelphia, Paris, San Francisco. Oh God, I could just keep going on and on and on. So I've gone into this quite a bit. I think that what's happened is they've used incendiary devices from aerial bombardments. The age of ballooning is a damn sight older, as is the age of photography. So they take out like exactly the same thing I've been talking about right the way through this post, which is beautiful colonial style architecture and old, I'll pull them up for you, old style antiquitech, which is what we like to call it. So the entire Paris, this is just one example, you know, like this Louvre type building, but look again, it's a lower level. So to me, it's just the eradication of any evidence of this mud flood event happening. So America and Paris all suffer these fires. So what happens next? Well, if anything happens next, every single area you see gets replaced with a great exposition. A World's Fair, guys. Every single one of these cities, on every single one of the sites, Chicago, all of them, guys. Just looking for yourself. So what they do is they get rid of the previous occupants. Can you see? This is beautiful evidence. This is them all over. Okay, look at it. Okay, so this is in Paris. It's burnt out in the 1850s. They're getting rid of the old tech, any evidence of it existing. And America's the same. They built on this area then the Great Expositions. Replica architecture, all looks new, okay, but I think that actually a lot of it was this stuff made good again. But look at this. This is rebab in the 1850s. You know, what kind of technology is going on here in the 1850s? You know, this is, if you go in with official narratives, that one picture itself just killed it. Everything you see here, look, it's just biblical in Paris and all cities across the board. So what's happening? Well, what I think is happening is part of this control grid that we find ourselves in, these small pockets of time. I think what's happening is they bring in like these world fairs or Disney World, then some type of brainwashing indoctrination camps, if you like. They build them, they flood literally millions and millions of people through, make millions and millions of dollars for every country that has them. They introduce the new world, which is going to be in your face anytime soon, which was already there that they wiped out, but one generation has died previous and no one can remember anymore because they got all the documents. It's a really clever trick when you hold the records, guys, and not difficult to do when you hold all the records, guys. So you can see a typical theme here going on, can't you? They're getting rid of old architecture in using war, fire in all cities. And I can guarantee you the same thing happens to every exposition in turn. So this is the pattern. The cities get burnt down. They build the great expositions on top, and in every single exposition also burns down. I'm not joking. It's a series. They all do it. Check it out yourself. It is insanity. So they introduced like the globosphere in the one, and there's one I could show you here if I could bring it up in Paris called the, oh, where is it? The globosphere, where they're basically
Can I just say that Flat Earth Dude has joined us? Hi, Flat Earth
Hey,
Dude.
mate.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
Thanks for
dude.
having
Hey
me.
there. Good to see you.
Cheers. Good to see
Anyway,
you.
I got to stop talking shortly because I've been like talking
No,
forever. Let me just show you this a minute, though, Rich. Right. This is I found a couple of weeks ago. Right, ceremonies and religious happenings around the plane. So you can imagine this guy, Pierre van der Haar, brother of the guy who's published these books. He's an artist, and he goes across the plane and he takes engravings of what he sees. Okay. But in 1733, there seems to be an overwhelming theme in deities alive and kicking. Okay. The whole population is in a very, very strange ISIS cult. So this is only the 1700s in these books, guys. So how can we jump from this this sort of weird spookiness, alchemical knowledge, everything is alchemical formula, everything is intercoded, everything, and death cult, as in here, skull and crossbones, skull and crossbones. So how do we go from the entire plane, which I can prove through these series of atlases, the entire plane is worshipping a strange death cult, which is only apparently 100 years before they built all these edifices in New York. Is nuts. So I think what's going on is this is during this survivor times. I think they go nuts, the controllers. Check it out, la. Black and white checkerboard floor. Don't take a genius if you know this stuff to work out what's going on. It's a Freemasonry, isn't it? It's the duality. And inside their little temple, another floating deity on a ball, bit of as a magician doing alchemy or black magic or what have you. And again, skull and crossbones. So it would seem, and this is this is not exactly Coexicotl, it's death cult in Mesoamerica, although although they were supposed to, the Aztecs, supposed to have disappeared by the 1600s, but check it out again. So they've got death cult going on, and it's not only in Mesoamerica, it's in Europe, it's in China, and they've got really strange practices. They get really bizarre, guys. But again, this is, to me, it was, it's got European connections on it, but I definitely think it's a flat Earth depiction. I've dug it out. It's Mayan, apparently. You've got the intertwining snakes, and you've got these 4 portals, these like 4 windows they keep going on about, especially on this square and stationary Earth map. But apart from that, how is it that we can go from this insanely alchemically encoded and flat earthy stuff 100 years later to something we recognize as of the modern world, when apparently Antiquitech is up and running, which is pyramids with balls on top and bollards or railings and all of these things, and as Rich said, these somatic porcelain discs on Victorian houses, they're doing exactly the same. I've seen them myself. Part of it, you get steel plates as well, which apparently hold walls in together, and they're a part of it too. They're holding the buildings from the mud flood impacts. So it just gets stranger. But what we will find is an overwhelming theme into everyone sort of eventually chows down on one another. Okay, but there are deities alive, and everybody eventually goes into cannibalism, and this is only in these books, apparently in 1733. I've been actually told or threatened indirectly through emails not to show these. I've had like somebody sending me emails of 2 people that were looking into these atlases that got killed. I was like, is that some sort of threat, dude? That's just going to make me show them all the more telling me that shit, dude. Don't you know that? So I got a collection, like literally a few hundred, and I've been decoding them, and they're giving me an alternative history. So the weird things that show up on these, like, I can't explain a lot of it, except they're actually cannibalist at this stage. But what I can't get my head around is the time period. Okay, we're not looking at ancient antiquity. We're looking in a time that's only supposed to be 300 years ago. What's going on, guys? How can we go from this world we can't even recognize to a world we can recognize? There's been a jump. What about this on the wall? Yeah, this is like something up a Marvel. What's that? What's that on there? Sundays. What's this? What's this nutty stuff going on? And you're going to see a lot of that going on in these books. You see deities too. You see the devil turn up in goat form. You see all sorts in these books. I'm not joking. And the whole population sort of get chowed down by the controllers, who have a large army, apparently, that turns up from the east at some stage and purchases. And they're obviously terrified by this, but we was there last year, Rich. We remember that well. The moon did a failed show, a no show from the moon on the eclipse. So yeah, they get pretty bleak, and it just freaks me out anyway, to be honest with you, what's been going on. But I could go on for hours, but I think I'll stop sharing now and let you guys have a talk for a bit. Eh?
You know, a lot of that looks like Baal worship.
It is. It is, definitely is. So,
I'll say it looks really, really creepy.
problem is when you start looking at it, it plays on your mind a bit as well. It's like there's something attached to it, something evil attached to all of this. These weird alchemical maps that I'd be looking at, and these depictions. There's like, first they make you like restless in sleep. There's something attached to them. And then this week, when I looked at them depictions for piezoelectric from angels, like they have Gabriel, all of the archangels' names, and then the symbol for them on the internet. Okay, Flat Earth British Sub, a subscriber channel of mine posted. I'm like, holy shit, no, that's piezoelectric circuit boards. So why are they attributing the name of an angel to an electrical circuit board? We're talking piezoelectric, so we're talking about the crystals, you know, the tiny crystals in lighters that give off immense amount of power once you give them that jab. That's what piezoelectric does. So I'm wondering why angels got names that are circuitry for piezoelectric, and it's all connected with this gotten tech, this god tech, because they attributing in this time, this weird alchemical time, which they call the 1700s, which we're supposed to have an idea about what it's like, because that's no idea of any realm. Like, it's like the whole thing's the Twilight Zone, guys. Yeah, but it's supposed to be our reality. These are not fictional books. It clearly states these are what I put down on my depictions of my voyages and my travels. They're called the pleasant. A lot of they actually state they're pleasant in some of them. That's not so pleasant what we've seen, but they all end up the same way. Fleet turns up, imposes control, forces the globe. I got one particular one where they're giving it to a chieftain in a Chinese town, I think it's Canton, and they're giving him a globe, okay, on an axis, on a stand, and he's going like that. No, not like no, and they're literally like the next depiction there is everyone's laying dead. Okay, so there's like the forcing the. So I think the fleet turns up. They force in at one stage the globe and this at this transitional time before this. How can we jump from that to the Victorian era? It's crazy to my mind. There's a thing they call the fold year as well, by the way, Rich, where they reckon that there could have been another 100 years at least between 1700 and 1600, and it's just completely been eradicated out of our calendar, because a lot of these events that I've been showing you
said that they changed our calendars.
Yeah, the 1744 one is the date of the Juliana Gregorian calendar, and then you thought, well, that can't be the only one. So later than then we got the Common Era on another event date in 1700s. So we go for Common Era, and you look at most of these for some particular reason they have a date shift. But what a lot of people don't know about the Juliana Gregorian shift is it took, apparently, in their narrative, 300 years to impose. So even today, it's not being imposed in some countries fully. The Vatican use it, and the royal family still use the Juliana calendar, and the Freemasons, by the way. That's why the Queen has two birthdays, one Juliana and one Gregorian. So when you're looking at a date on, say, a cathedral in, say, Naples, right, and it's dated at, say, I don't know, an anomalous one, let's say 1659, which 1659 are they actually talking about? Because the first, before this 1744 shift, happened in a big event, the biggest one I know of in my country, and 1609 tsunami that come through this area as quick as a speeding racehorse, 30 meters high, and took a generation to recover, killing thousands of people. It was called the Bristol Channel tsunami. Problem is, if you go Googling it or YouTubing it, there's only 2 videos in the world, and I've done them both. So. But
that's great. That's great.
Yeah, but we got signs. The dates are all wrong in my area for the flood. Some say 1607, some say 1609, and and then when you look into it, they'll actually explain inside some of these chapels. Oh, right. Well, that just didn't have that particular chapel never caught up with the Gregorian shift. So this thing is more deeper than we know. And while it's unraveling, they're introducing new calendar shifts like Common Era, and then they introduced in the 1800s the railway times, because apparently if you stop in Reading, your watch is not going to say what it's saying in Swindon. So at one time, apparently in the 1800s, everyone syncs watches, and we all go to British Rail Time. Bink. So apart from that, they're only the ones that we know of. So how many more calendar shifts? So when are we exactly?
No, they're only the ones they're telling us about, and that's if they're right.
2018, we are not in. We're in a small.
Astral joined us. Astral.
Hey, that's enough for me. My mob's
like.
Nice to see you as well.
No, it's amazing. Thank you, Martin.
Hey, Astral.
All right, guys. Sorry, I've just got in. I'm going to have to listen to this again tomorrow, Mr. Liedtke.
Yeah,
me too.
It's quite a sticky night tonight, isn't it, Astral?
Hey, Martin, if I could, I got 2 questions for you.
Please.
The first one is, where do you find these atlases? And the second one is, I can't remember where I saw it, but it was in one of the calendar changes. I think it was when you go, I think it was October. You go to like October 1st, October 2nd, and then the next day is October 14th or some crazy thing like that.
Yeah.
They skipped the whole 12 days or something.
Yeah, there's a few of them that have gone on as well. The atlases, what I did is I was watching Russia, YouTube. They're not doing exactly the same, the flat earthers in Russia, as the rest of us over here were doing. So I got intrigued, and they were all into a fear of mud flood, and some of them atmospheric electricity. So I noticed one guy looking at this atlas, and I thought, my God, look at the depictions. I've never seen anything like them. They're mind-blowing. And it was from a French company called Gallica. And that's the only thing, because I picked up that link from Gallica, and I went to the website, and I managed to discover a couple of hundred. Now, I played a moment of genius. I pressed screenshot for them all, but I did better, is I documented, I wrote them all down in a book. It took me hours and hours and hours, but I thought, I got a sneaking suspicion these might go missing. Now, other people are doing this as well. They're setting up channels because these things are beautiful to play a bit of music and show, yeah? Or not beautiful, sinister, right? This guy, Captain Kirk, he goes searching in
I gotta
Gallagher.
run. I'll be back.
66
right back.
of them he finds
Okay, fair, dude.
left
Carry on.
in the world, apparently. So where are they gone? They've gone missing. They're taking them off. They're pulling them. They're altering the information. And some guy sent me a few photographs out of one of the Galacas that I have been showing, and said this has been photoshopped. This has been added or taken away too. And this narrative about them being in a history rewriter's office and being not subject to change through this pivotal time, like, and are showing the real history. And I'm like, how can this be when they're showing all this weird stuff that doesn't exist in our reality? And over, you know, you've got the normal stuff, the Europeans all fine and returning up, normal galley ships that are indicative of this time. They turn up, and exactly the same thing happens wherever they turn up. Exactly the same. A replica, carbon copy, imposed order, and reaping carnage on the population. So is that what happened in the 1700s? So why were they doing that? Because of the events and mud flows and etc. The year without summer, facts, the crops failed for at least 2 years, 3 years, biblical famine across the plain. Asia alone, they've attributed the that famine to another reason, from China through to Moscow. They say something in the region of 60 million. And if you do world math economics of how many people were on the plane right then, that was like nearly everybody died of famine back in this era, as well as all of this going on, of these executions. And apparently the official narratives of the East India Company, and we know all the stories of how our histories have happened in America and Britain. But yeah, it's not fitting with any road that I'm going down. None of their official rubbish is fitting with anything that I'm discovering at all. Not even bits.
And you know, Mark, I appreciate that. This is just a thought, but I said sort of off cuff, you know, it's not Leonardo da Vinci. You know, everything out of Europe and everything out of Europe from the Renaissance period was beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful art. People learned how to draw again and paint, and yet the stuff you're showing looks like kindergarten stuff almost. It's like, did they revert back to the Dark Age? What we call the Dark Ages?
No, I think what's going on, if you see the ones that look like, no insult to a child, but the ones that look like a child, then that's just them out of the tap of stock, playing as a young.
Okay.
Right. What is going on with Michelangelo and Da Vinci is mind-blowing. When you look into it, you find out, right, that these paintings, they might be not even paintings. There might be something completely different going on. Some sort of photographic process.
Absolutely.
Some sort of silk screen process. A channel called New Earth, she showed evidence of some professor that had done an analysis on the paint depths. So the layers of paint are all oil that have gone on to the average, say, Da Vinci, right? And it was like down on the atomic scale. It was like Planck or something. You couldn't even detect it. So they're trying to paint the official narrative as these people were knocking up in a bit of red ochre and a bit of, lazuli in a clay pot, managing to add a bit of water to a right consistency. And you've seen these pictures. They look like photographs, some of them, don't they? And the statues as well, right? The Beninis and them statues that you see in Rome. No man could have chiseled them. No human.
And look at that. Have you looked at the math? Have you looked at the math in the Last Supper painting? It's unbelievably incredible.
Yeah, well, I definitely think because basically because of the Da Vinci Code, I was looking at that. But yeah, there is so much.
It's amazing. I mean, down to the brushstroke, perfect mathematics with everything else in orientation relative to one
All
another.
coded, all of it as well. And these statues, the Bernini, he's supposed to have been 21, right? And you imagine a 21-year-old managed to bang out hundreds and hundreds of these beautiful pieces. Now, how were they making them? Were they 3D printing back then? Because I'm telling you what, I can't imagine. First of all, there's no chisel marks. Okay, so there's nobody with a copper chisel banging away at these Beninis. You'll have to look at these statues to even try and imagine how human beings could make them. Do you know what? Some of them, they got eyelashes, individual eyelashes made carved out of stone. You can have a veil. I got one picture of a veil on a woman, right? And the veil is made out, carved out of stone. Yeah, it's so transparent you can see her face through the veil. How is that possible with a chisel? They said even if you tapped it, it would just go ping. So that there's some other technology going on in the Middle Ages with these paintings and statues, Rich, 100%, especially with Da Vinci. And
alchemy too. When you study Da Vinci, you get a little edges of it, but they don't go deep. But I think he was early on discovering all kind of things about chemistry and nature, but they won't touch it. They want to talk about his paintings and flying machines, which is fascinating too. I mean, there's nothing unfascinating about what he did.
No, it's not. And Galileo Galilei, you know, when they show you his depictions of flying machines and helicopters, but I can't help thinking that they handed us them as well. Don't know why. Just like the Baghdad battery. It's, you know, I had people coming up to me and saying, you know, I'm so blown away, man. Have you ever heard of the Baghdad battery? To my mind, no, that's an insult, the Baghdad battery, to what they had. Yeah, I just see this really such, you know, like we can't akin anything to it in our frame of reference. Like, I think they got something else going on. I really do. I believe it's down to the people. It's based on emotions, intent, and how reality works, really. And I think they definitely know the powers, and they definitely using it against us. Definitely 100% to keep the people asleep. No doubt about that. They understand this alchemical, what they call the occult, isn't it, or hidden knowledge. This alchemical way to our reality. You know, in their heliocentrism, you know, they use it to say there's elements hanging out there in the ether, and they pull them all together, and they can cast spells and etc. And they use it on the Marvel films now with Doctor Strange. Exactly the same. You literally have alchemical symbols like this, Doctor Strange. You'll have like and the Marvel films are pushing it, and they're pushing quantum mechanics as well. Don't know what they're doing there, Rich, but I watched Ant-Man a couple of nights ago, and he literally goes down he goes small. He got a small suit, but he goes down into the quantum realm, right? So it's like he shouldn't have been able to come back from there for the start off, because he's supposed to be in the field of infinite possibilities. So every possibility ever, he would have been able to come back. So but why are Hollywood pushing that agenda is what I'm wondering, ever so much more. And did you see that today, released about Asgardia? Did you catch that today? Did you see that?
No, what'd you say?
On Truth Will's channel, Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, he posted yesterday a video. This company had set up, this billionaire Russian, and it's called the first one in history, the first independent human space kingdom, called Asgardia. And I'm not joking, they had it in this big auditorium in Munich. All of these really rich elites, they all stood there with their hands on their hearts, and they all did the Asgardian national anthem, which they'd all learned. And they were all teary-eyed while they were singing it. I'm not joking. Then the president of Asgardia was given, he had his hand on his Asgardian Bible. He was quite emotional about that while he did his Asgardian oath. Okay, for one unity on one world and one people. All under that Asgardian veil of protection, he's saying. And then they gave him this necklace, like a Masonic necklace. This guy was the treasurer, he was a Japanese guy. This other guy on stage was a British guy. And the main Russian guy had a handlebar moustache, had a dicky bow on, and looked like he just stepped out an 1800s time traveler. And then they gives you a clip then, straight to the ISS. And they got a Russian on the ISS playing with discs, saying, look, if you did not know, there is microgravity in space. Look, let me show you paper discs. I can catch this one if I'm very careful with the augmented reality. There I have it. I have it. So he's doing that, and he's part of this Asgardian. So it's apparently a real thing. I seen this website like about a year ago because they were picking it apart, flat earthers. It stunk of alchemical formula on its icon. Basically, it was a hard drive with the needle part being the High of Horus, and another alchemical somatic pattern. Oh, imprinted in there. I just take my glasses off again. And so I don't really know what's going on, Rich, but I know they understand it. And I know that it's tainted. I know that when you look into it, it's like, do I really want to look at that? Does that make any sense to you? It's like, I sort of want to know, but at the same time, I'm not sure if I want to.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one government, one world, one people, one controller is what it is.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think it's sure anyway. Let's be honest. We can't go where we want, can we? They give us passports and the illusion that we can go where we want. We can't.
We have the illusion of freedom. I think that's the next great leap when everybody realizes, hey, we don't need government. All they do is take from us, and then we beg for these rights back.
They're going to try something like that. I definitely think they will try something like that. They will con us into self-sovereignty. They will think they've given us back our sovereignty, but it will be very, very far from that.
Yeah, well, no, it's true when they stop taxing us.
Oh my God! Do you know what they're saying in Britain? This will be very clever if they do it. You know how petrol works? Remember when it was really, really cheap, and then in 1972, the Arabs just did the big whammy and just put the petrol up 3/4, killing the burst the bubble for cheap petrol. What if they're doing that with the internet? They're advertising and saying yesterday in Britain, I caught it on news feed, that they are going to like literally put up broadband, be too expensive for the average Briton within the next few years. I thought, oh, now can you imagine that 10 years down the road saying to your friend, remember when we used to have cheap broadband back in them days before it was $250 a week? Yeah, remember them days? They did it with the petrol. They will get everyone addicted to broadband. I already am. I wouldn't want to be without it. None of us would. And we will be so reliant on it. And then all of a sudden, like they did with the petrol, boom, broadband. And they've already threatened it. So it's going to happen. We'll go astronomical. In Britain, it's going to go really, really expensive. So only the few will be able to afford it. And the common man will not be able to.
Yeah, it'll be the elite who can afford it. And that's 100% censorship immediately.
So there you are. All inflow of information stops. This sort of stops. What did we do before? How did we manage before the internet then, Rich? Telephones? Not really. Letters.
Maps in your car.
Maps. The A to Z. Yeah, we had maps. I remember them. Yeah. But we managed fine right the way through most of our lives without the internet or these modern communications, haven't we? It's only been the last, 15, 20 years these things are turned up. So they're not an absolute necessity. I managed to live absolutely fine without them. But now this year, I really miss it. It wasn't.
What did we used to have, though? If you can build those buildings, there's other things going on before Tesla. So what were they using? They had kind of traveling machines.
I think they had everything. Maglev technology. I got a document, 1700s again, the uses for magnetism. So they're clearly aware of opposing magnetic forces. So if there's an entire book with the science to go with it, with opposing magnetic forces, I think it's pretty safe to assume that they worked out how to make to opposing magnets is a type of free energy, by the way. You can send a projectile around something. So I reckon they are harnessing a lot more than even we got now. I think you would akin it to magic, the type of technology they had in the past. I think everything that the Hollywood have given us has been the usual brainwashing. They never had no money. Bring out your dead. You must be the king. He's not covered in shit. Buckets of pee being chucked out of the window where you're ducking, plague and death and pestilence, and nobody's got it together, and the entire population is peasants covered in mud, is what they want you to think of the past. I think it's exactly the opposite. I think we're now in the Dark Ages. We're so lost from our true who we are, our reality of who we are and what we're supposed to be doing here. It is a shame. It's like you just, if you really found out, it would be probably a they done. You know, this pattern robbing us of our intent. You know, I'm not saying we could all be Superman, but we could all have a damn sight better lives if we learn how this reality works the way they have. And the key is the information, isn't it? They hold the chestnuts of information. So the only things we get is when they slip up or when they sneak something out. And they don't slip up very often, do they? So you've got to be really clever to catch something.
And if we find out too much and get too close to the truth, they'll just burn it all down again.
Loads of people say it to me. What are they going to do when the jig's up fully? You know, are they just going to reset us or pull the plug or pull the oceans or what have you, or reset us? But I can't see them getting rid of the population, the slave class anyway. Not all of them. They're going to need some, because they're not going to want to do any work themselves. They can't automate it all. You're going to need a hairdresser, maybe a funeral director. I don't think they can all be done by machines. So they're going to need people, some people, but not as many as they got now.
It would have just been nice if they told us the truth, and it takes people like you to come across this history and work it out, you know, like the floods.
They wouldn't be able to tell you the truth. They would lose all control. And I'm not understating what I'm saying, what they robbed us of, what we truly are. I can't underemphasize the travesty of this.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything you're talking about, we've had. Everything we have now was here in the past.
Got it. It's indistinguishable from magic, because you wouldn't know what it was. It would be outside of your frame of reference. I'm looking at stuff. The only way I can explain it is because I don't understand it, because it's outside of my frame of reference. I don't understand some guy who's going to stick sulfurous potions in a pot and make an alchemical smoke that's going to cause something, that's going to do something, because this is what these people are doing. It's part of their reality. And they're right canny, some of these shamans, you know. They get their stuff together. They'd be surprised. And most trusted languages are oral traditions, spoken language, around a campfire, like the North American Indians, Aboriginals, and the like. I think they could be more or less trusted. And they're all flat plains on all of their oral traditions, and they talk of events.
And you know a hell of a lot more about nature than we do, that's for sure.
Yeah, they damn right there. But look, they got advanced civilization in Sedona Valley. You know.
We're the ones in the dark, like you said. We're the ones in the dark ages.
I really do. We think we are. I know. We think. You know, it's like, if you try to run a narrative of the human race in a movie, and it's like they became so greedy and cocky of themselves. They thought they had it all with their shiny technology and their towers of glass and steel. I could just see the narrative, but yet they were so foolish, because they were totally enslaved, and then outside of this pot is everything else, and we're just small nothings, you know, where they keep us under there from the moment you're born to the moment you go, and they're still at you then as well. So yeah, definitely strange times in the past, Rich, coming out. Can't find much of it. It's missing. The past is missing.
You've done a lot of good work there, Martin.
I do. If I would like more time to do more research, but I'm sure that God will give me that when it's time is meant to be, because I don't believe like anything's without purpose, is it? Each day,
nope.
Each circumstance that happens is meant to happen. So I just go with the flow, Rich, really. And a lot of the stuff that comes my way is from other people. They send me on a torrent of research. We all work together. There's nothing selfish going on, which is why we're going forward. You know, I'm not looking to get no golden fucking stars off YouTube for doing good work. I'm not looking to make anyone happy. I'm looking to make people happy, actually. But you know what? I want us all to make golden discoveries and find out more about our reality before we all snuff it from what they're going to tell us. Because they tell us nothing.
Well, check that link out. You may have seen it, but it talks a lot about the porcelain, and it goes into Karen's thing about the fuel in the airplanes and how the engines really work. And it has a nice little area where it talks about how much tonnage of fuel would be in each wing. It would never get off the ground. It would never get off the ground.
You're old enough, you might remember. Now, we're watching jets, me and my son, in a field today, right? He said, look at that one, Dad. Look at the speed that's going, right? Now, I said, funny thing is, when I was a kid out my street, if a jet went over, wasn't it screaming loud? Even not even higher, I'd be like, wow, these jets are so loud, and they would go over all day, really loud and really quick. How come they're not screaming loud? There was another jet, and then it started pouring a chemtrail in front of our eyes, and had no noise at all. It wasn't a wind direction. This
Yeah,
thing wasn't
absolutely.
far
In
away.
fact, yeah, I used to live in an area where they had no fly times because they were so loud.
That's it. Can you remember years ago how loud
Yeah.
jets were? So is
Yeah.
that just advancements in technology, Rich? Because I don't think so. I can remember them being screaming loud, doing your head in loud.
You're
Going
absolutely
over.
correct. Absolutely.
And they're not like it anymore. And if you're young, you would know that. You'd think that they'd always been that quiet.
Yeah, and you would always think there was chemtrails. There was never chemtrails, ever.
No. And the speeds as well are definitely wrong. I can definitely see that they are doing different sorts of speeds than what they're making out, for sure. Some of them look like they're going Cessna speed, so maybe 100 mile and 90 mile an hour or something. They do.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah.
I was a bit shocked when I took off on a plane last year. It was a propeller plane, but still a jet plane. But so it was a bit smaller. I asked how fast, and she said 80 miles an hour. I was like, what?
To take off, you mean, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's supposed to be takeoff speed, isn't it? 8 mile an hour. But it doesn't look like, does it? You're right. It's just like, this is not enough.
I thought it was much faster because, especially if you're in a bigger plane, you know, you get that feeling when they go whack with the engines. That's it. You feel it's like a rocket waiting to go. It's like someone's got an electric fan waiting to ping. It's only going
right?
It's only going about 100 miles an hour, 110 miles an hour.
We used to go to the end of our airport runway when we were teenagers. Check this out, right? And you can lay down on the car bonnet at the end of the runway. There was a road, okay? So where it come in from the sea to Cardiff Airport, and then there was the road on the coast, and then the start of the runway. So right there is the fence. So you could lay there, and when the plane come over and the engine's just this far from the top of the fence, you could scream as loud as you possibly could, and you wouldn't hear a word. And that was the cool thing about it when you were a kid, a teenager. It's like we would go in and look at one another and you go, you can't hear nothing. This is so cool.
You were doing science before you knew it.
Yeah, but taking off as well. We were watching them and they were so huge, especially the you know, the Boeing 747s, and they were just like they were floating up, just like levitation, just like, how is it even going up there? How is that thing just not going boom, all that weight? Big skinny little wings full of fuel.
Yeah.
With the way that everybody believes planes are, I must admit, it's made me think about going on an aeroplane now, because all you need basically is a gun, fire it up at a plane, boof, that's it.
Yeah, so
it's a flying bomb.
Yeah. Now that you know that when you go on a plane, though, when you're flying at ridiculous thousands of feet, that you've got all that ground below you, and if anything happens, you're definitely 100% going to die. You know that when you step on a plane. But fortunately, it doesn't happen very often. And Travel Qantas, according to the film Rain Man, Qantas have never had a crash. I hope that doesn't end now, I've said.
You're in luck if you go to Australia.
Yeah, good job it's not down under.
Every street gets broken now and then too, so I don't know if that's good or bad.
No, I don't know. I was just being in chat. I've not seen anything going on, Cameron. I tell you what, I got a deadly sweat on. I got to go and have something to eat. I have had no dinner, and I've been at the hospital all evening. So I'm going to love you and leave you, and then dive off. If that's all right.
Thanks very much, Martin.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Martin. That was really nice. I love your take on history very much.
I got loads more. It's just finding the time for narratives and all that. You know, like I've had a manic day, and if I'd have had more time to set something up, I'm sure it'd be not so baffling. And it'll come out a bit clearer, especially with the chronology. It's a bit difficult to understand, you know, with, you know, you might juggle in your mind with, well, they did this at that period. How could that have been? And then you start to see the size of this cover up. Yeah. Just look into it and you will see this is big. And it is like as big as Flat Earth, in my opinion, because, you know, the entire past and must be unlocked in small pockets is the key. And the Flat Earth is just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? Just them telling us we're on a crazy spinning ball with the only evidence was cartoons, and we all fell for it. Wow. Unbelievable. But there you go. Power of persuasion, eh?
Yeah, I look at flat Earth as the entry drug.
I liked your submarine video the best, I reckon, because that was a killer. That was because keeping periscope depth on a submarine, apparently on a curvy ball thing, would be completely impossible. Not only there's loads of killers like that with depths and things and all of that. I used to do it with displations and work it all out on math with the pencil plate. And then there's loads of killers with just doing that alone. If I could just get my head around it. But it was a good video, and I was totally onto it.
I appreciate that. And, you know, since then, I think it was a Navy chief who was in 20 years or whatever on submarines. I'm sure he didn't see my video, but he came on somebody's and said, it's got to be flat because we never compensated for curve ever.
Well, they won't, will it? Then they
No.
never would. Yeah, I know, but they wouldn't think of it at the time, though, would they?
No, I mean, there's so many things I can think back now when I was sailing that just make no sense. But you don't think. It's like when you read the Bible, it says, you know, God fixed the earth so it does not move. Well, I translate it as, oh, it'll stay in its orbit. It'll never move out of its orbit.
Yeah.
That's something I added from the brainwashing.
Same. Exactly.
So when you get the gateway drug in you, you start looking at everything differently.
Yeah.
It's like
a blessed awakening. So many angles to it as well, you know. It's not
absolutely
multi-spectrum, really so interesting, always exhilarating, always exciting. That's why I love it. So, but I've got to bounce because my stomach is cramping up and I need to eat.
Go, Martin. Feed yourself. God bless you, man. Thank you very much.
Ready to speak to you soon, man. Karen, Astral, Patricia, people.
Love you, Martin.
Love you, people. Keep that link from in a minute, Rich. Thanks.
Look after yourself.
I will. I'm on the scene. I'm going to be on the scene again in the morning. I'm a very busy man on the flat earth scene, so I'll be around soon. Peace and love. God bless, guys.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye, darling. Hey, is there anything you'd like to say then, Rich? Because we've been going for a couple of hours now.
Actually, I am so exhausted you wouldn't believe it. I'm so tired of waking up 3 a.m. in pain. And, you know, I've been doing physical therapy on my shoulder since March 10th, I think it was. And I'm just tired of it. So I went to the gym today and just beat the living hell out of it. And I'll either wake up again in pain at 3 a.m. or I'll be better. So, but it really exhausted me because I really went hard for the first time since March. Just sick of it and sick of doctors and what they can't do and what they won't help you with. So So I hate to always be talking about health issues, but that's worse than anything right now for me is that. So I keep plugging away. That's why a lot of.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was going to say, did you look up the article about that Rife machine?
No, not yet. I know what it's about. I know you told me what it's about, but I've got it. I think that's the second thing on my list of things to look today.
Hey, well, on that note then, can we say goodbye off air, but we'll say goodbye on air now, because that was an amazing hangout, and thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed that, Rich.
Oh, I really did. It was, as I always say, it's always fascinating on this channel, always. Never a dull subject.
Look at us people. And you're an amazing person, very much respected in the Flat Earth community.
Except for the trolls.
Well, yeah, let's set them.
I had a good clean out there lately.
Good.
Yeah.
Astral, thanks for coming on. Patricia, thank you so much, chat room. We're going to say goodbye off air. We'll say goodbye. Sorry, we'll say goodbye off air, but on air, goodbye as well. So thank you very much, everybody, and see you in a couple of days.
Bye, everyone.